use 07 as the zero line. That's when the pricing peaks started to drop, right? So somewhere in April of 07, that number started to drop, where we came into our bottom line April of 11, April of 12. April of 12 is when we started to see the rebound, and we see the cumulative price change increasing with some little bit of blips where it kind of leveled off, but it kept on going. So we got all the way until, what was it, June of 2020, where we kind of leveled off a little bit, and then it just kept on rising up. So you can see back in April of 16, we reached where we were in April of 07. Again, average, not to say any one particular house was this way, but the overall average of houses, the communities, the United States is where we're at. So we get to April of 2022, and then we know that number is starting to flatline with a slight little drop. Obviously, this is not to scale because this is a whole year, and we're only talking about 4 months right here. So we know we're somewhere right in here. So the market has not gone down to 07. It hasn't gone down to 11 and 12, hasn't gone to 20. It's still up here for the average. So we don't want to paranoid and get anxiety and cause stress. We need to know where our numbers are. So I wanted to show you this overall average number here. And if does anybody have any questions on that before I take that screen down? Any questions on that before I take the screen down? All right, I'm going to take that one down. And then I want to get into how do we get more localized numbers for pricing? Where are we going to get those? And you know you're going to get those from RAIN, right? So you're going to get those from RAIN. So let's share with you and go over quickly Domus and RAIN. And I'll pull this window up for you here. Make sure I get the right one. Okay. All right. Up is coming Domus. So close some of these other windows out here. All right. So here we are with our Domus Analytics, and you can find that under products, under RAIN. So RAIN.com, not Matrix, but under RAIN.com, go to products, go down to Domus Analytics. Now this is a mostly live graph. It is live to the end of the month of reporting. So this is through the reporting of July 22nd. But because it's not static, it will change as you hover over. It will also change as you choose property types or regions or do any of these modifications. It's a live graph and it's going to change instantaneously, but it's not using today's numbers, right? So we have to understand that this is through July 2022. To get the August numbers, we got to wait until September 5th, 6th, somewhere in there, and then the September numbers or the August numbers will be built into this. So this is the market review dashboard. It gives us the quickest, easiest little statistical piece of information. So this is how you will use Domus for statistics for your particular properties, your particular listings, your particular buyers, your particular sellers, whichever appointment that you're going on. So let's just take a look at the overall operation. So here under the types, you have residential, detached, attached, multifamily, and land. If we only wanted to look at attached and detached, we can do that. So we can just look at residential from our perspective. And then we go over here to our regions selected. This is all of them. If we just wanted to get rid of North Carolina, other, you could use Williamsburg, you could use Southside, whichever way you want to do it. Let's just take Williamsburg out since they use a separate MLS from that perspective. And we'll use the Southside and Peninsula. And then we come over here and it shows us our cities. All right, so these are our cities that are in RAIN. And this gives us our numbers from July 21 through June 22. So our July 22 numbers, our median sales price for attached and detached on the South Side and Peninsula is $315,000. If I came in here and I took out Peninsula, this figure is going to recalculate. And now the average sales or the median sales price is $330,000. If I flip it and I put Peninsula, going to recalculate, and that median drops to 277,900. So you can see that this will calculate the numbers for you based off of where you're at. So if you want to get a little bit higher level, you can do the area. You want to get a little super local, come down here, unselect them all, choose Norfolk. And in Norfolk, the median sales price is $290 with 359 settled sales, 15 days on market, 552 active listings. So we can see these numbers here going back and forth. Now I want to put this as an overall of RAIN, so I'm going to put everything to this standard. Attached, detached, Southside Peninsula, the 9 cities. All right, so we can see here the median sales price from July 2021 was $290,000. In July 22, it was 319. So it's down over June, but it's still up over a year ago. So up 8.6 over the year, down 1.6 over the month. Same thing with settled sales. We are down 25% of settled sales. We're down 15% month over month. Now I want to go down here and show you this perspective. Active listings are down 15% over the year, increasing 2.7% over the month. So we can see that crisscross of numbers occurring as we look at these percentages. You can see these new listings here down 2,800 or down to 2,800, which is 16% lower than June. So June we had 3,377. Now we're down to 2,830. So there's still not more listings coming on the market. There's just seems to be less sales happening, right? So it's not necessarily that there's there's more houses, it's less houses year over year. So you can see this curve where there was a little bit of a spike, but we just dipped. Now, is that a market trend or is that everybody's on vacation for summer and summer trend? So that's what we have to look at and say, hey, was this a July thing? Is this an August thing? Or is this a market trend? So that's why you have to come look at these on a weekly, maybe, I shouldn't say weekly, but at least before you go on your listing appointments, you want to come look at these trends so that you're prepared for it. If you're not paying attention to these trends, you may be saying something to someone who is paying attention to the trends and they don't see what it is. All right, so here's our supply of inventory. We were at 0.9 months in March and December. And at this point from July, there is 1.5 supply of inventory. So it's gone up a little bit, but still not a whole lot of inventory, which tells you just because there's not a lot of inventory, you still have to price it according to the condition. Otherwise, it will sit. If any of you have taken an overpriced listing for the condition of the property, I feel like you know you can't overprice a listing for the condition of the property, right? It's got to be good condition, good price. I don't think we're going to have a 2006-07 situation where we just drop off the curve, because I think people are now learning they need to price accordingly. And if I go back to this graph here, just to reiterate, I'm going to stop sharing there. Share this again, the overall graph. We can see in this graph that we have not had anything like this showing up yet at this point. No steep dip drop. So we know that we're still somewhere in this and we're trying to figure out, is it COVID? Is it summer? Where is it from that perspective? All right, I want to take any questions now on this Domus information here. Any questions on the Domus overview? Can I get an indication in the chat, if you can, of if you're using Domus Analytics before you go on your listing appointments? Can you type in the chat if you're using these before you go on your listing appointments? Not just using it in general, but using it specifically before you go on an appointment. Got 1, 2, 3 yeses. Okay. So there are, see, there are 20 of us on the call. Kimberly and I take those also 18. So about 1/6 of you all, maybe 1/5 or so. So I really want to stress to you before you go on your listing presentations, please come to Domus and at least run this report. There are several other reports. Some of them you can't get as detailed as you would like with the old, like we had the old system. But again, there are some good insights here into at least the cities. If you try and get a microcosm to a neighborhood, then the stats are not going to work. It just doesn't have enough data to populate here. But you can do it for the cities from a pricing insight. You can definitely use some of the filters. You can switch it from attached and detached from that perspective. You can get down into the areas in some of these that will help you. I'm not going to go through all of these. I've done a Domus class before, so that's not necessarily the point of this class to show Domus, but it is just to reiterate to you that Domus is there. And if you would like a replay of the Domus classes that I've done, simply send an email to training@BHHStown, and Haley or Kimberly will send you the link to YouTube, or you can go to the YouTube channel and you can watch those replays where I break down all of the individual sections of Domus. But I do really want to reiterate, please, when you're pricing, come look at this and give yourself some mindset of what's going on in the cities from that perspective. You also need to go to RAIN and do your CMAs and look at it from that perspective. All right, now, when you're going through your pricing, there's a couple of thoughts of interest that I would like to share with you. One is if the market is in a decline, if the market is declining, if you can show through your stats that the market is dipping, right? It's on that downhill slide. I'm going to recommend when you set your pricing, when you recommend your pricing points to your clients, predict where the market's going to be in 3 months. Predict where the market's going to be in 3 months and set your start point there. That way you're ahead of the market instead of chasing the market. You want to get ahead of instead of chasing the market. Somebody unmuted. Do you have a question? No. I don't see who it was. Okay. All right. So a recommendation is to look at 3 months ahead projecting and go there for your price. Does anybody have any questions on that? Any questions? Has anybody done that? Put your virtual hand up or no? All right, it's probably been a long time since we were trying to get ahead of the market. So that's the first thing I want you to think about when you're pricing is if you can confirm that the market you're in, the city, the neighborhood is in a decline, consider suggesting, recommending that they price it aggressively 3 months ahead. Now, you're going to have your data. You're going to have your graphs from Domus. You're going to have your graphs from RAIN. You're going to have your stats to say, look, here's where this neighborhood is. This is where the market is. Here's where it's trending. This is why I'm going to recommend you start in a price point between here and here, which is where I believe it's going to be in about 3 months. So it's very important for you to look at the stats and understand the stats. Now I want to show you another little stat graph that I've been working on and accumulating. So let me get this up here and share it with you. All right, this first one I'm going to show you is the current active listings in RAIN. And this is from 2016, is where we got back to when we're doing this calculation. And in January of 2016, there were 13,217 listings. And then you can see that we increased up to 14,300, and then it started to decline in July of, or June, July, whichever way you want to look up, 216, and it dropped to 11,447. So we started the year at 13. By the end of the year, we were 2,000 in the deficit. January, there was a little bit of an increase, and we worked our way back up to 13,449. And by the end of the year, we were down to 10,700. Again, January, just a little bit more, worked our way up to the year in June at 12,299. By the end of the year at 10,000 in 2018. Same thing, goes up just a little bit at the end of our beginning of the year, somewhere the peak around June, dipping down to the low in December. Again, you can see this trend here. We're up, but at this point in 2022, we're 852, then 84, 87, 86, 82, 76. So the peak in the past years in here is not the peak. The peak was right here, March, April. Well, we know that's when the pandemic hit. That's when things started to change. So there goes our inventory right there. Right in here, the inventory starts decreasing and keeps decreasing with a little bit of a pickup back here in July of 2021. And then we continue to see the inventory over the course of the year decrease. And then we come back up here. We're even less than we were to finish the year. And then we get in here to April, when it seems like we're almost 2 years in, and now the inventory is increasing. So if the predictors of the past years are the same, our inventory will decrease, 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 decrease. If we see these numbers increase, 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 that's what we're looking for. Is this going to get into a cycle of decreasing, or is this going to get into a cycle of increasing? So these are the numbers right here we really need to pay attention to, because of the historical data that says come June, July, after June, July, the inventory reduces. Does everybody see that, understand that, have any questions on those listings? I'm just going to pause here to let you unmute or type in the chat if you have anything.
Is there any way to see if since the inventory is lower during those times, whether or not the price point goes higher because of the lower inventory?
Yeah, we're working on the price point. I'm going to show you the next one, at least the number of units of sales. So we're working on the price point one for this. We got to get some calculations and work through the different data points. There's a lot of data. So yes, we'll have that one probably in a week or so. But we have the sales one, and I'll show you the sales one right now. I'm going to stop sharing the listing one, and then I'm going to share the sales data one. All right, now this one is settled sales data. So these are the number of sales that have closed in the system. And you can see in 2015, we were at 1280, and then we peaked at 2755 in June. And then you can see where the data goes here. Again, June, the highlight of the month, or the year, I'm sorry. Again, June of 17, you had the high point there. June of 2018, and you can see each year 100 more units, give or take, closing. Then we got to 2019, and the high point was actually in July at 3,200, 200 more than the high point in 18. Then we get to July of 2020, and we're now at 400 more units, give or take, over the high point of the year. But we also see that these high numbers are still way higher than the past. So look at this. In September of 2020, with 1,300 more closed units than the year before, 600 more closed in October, 600 more closed in November, 800 more closed in December. So you can see these numbers here. And then we got to June, 4,500, which is 900 more. So you can see where all this movement and activity was going on right in here, which we all know, we all saw it, we all felt it, but it's way higher than it was here. But I want to look at this from a perspective of the beginning of 2022 versus 2015, you're 1,200 more units. You're 900 more or 1,100 more units than 16, 800 more units than 17, 700 more units, 700 more units, 600 more units, same number of units. So we can look at this data here, very similar here, and see where the sales are going. And at this point, in June last year, we were 600 down, and now in July, we're 900 down. So it's 900 down, but if you go back to 2018, it's right around the same number of units. So June, up over 18, up over 19, up over 2020, down over 21. So that's where we're going to keep an eye on this number too, to show us what's happening with the units. So again, you want to be looking at these stats, looking at these units, so that when you're pricing, you're taking into consideration what's going on in the market overall, in a hyper-focused market, wherever you might be. You need to have the data available to you. Questions on this chart or this graph, or not a graph, but this spreadsheet?
Where can we get this information? Is this just something you're maintaining?
Yes, we're maintaining it, and we're working with Ralston and having it on Town Central so that when the number comes in for each month, it'll be updated, so you'll be able to grab that form every month. Now, from a standpoint of when would that be, I would presume, based on rain and getting out the full stats, it's going to be somewhere between the 10th and the 12th of every month. But in the time being, we will definitely email anybody that wants these two, the stats. We can email it to you. Just shoot an email to training@BHHS-Town, and Kimberly or Haley or I will send you these two graphs or charts or spreadsheets, however you want to call these.
So when it goes on Town Central, is it going to be the entire graph like you're showing us, or is it just going to be? Okay.
I'm not sure if it's going to be a live link, Ashley, or if it's going to be a static document that we just update the number. I'm not sure how I'm talking with Ralston about what's the best way to get that out there for you guys to use. But I know some of you who are like Ashley that can use spreadsheets and things like that. I know y'all can get you can create graphs off of these. So you'll be able to use these and do some graphs and things. Definitely will have that ability for you to import or export or manipulate that data. It won't be just a PDF. It'll be interactive for you to use and turn it into something more than what it is here. All right, so let me now talk to you about a couple of pricing strategies, pricing context. One of the first things that you all need to be prepared for or aware of is your price reductions, right? So if you have a property that you feel is overpriced, you look at the stats, you look at the numbers, how are you going to go and ask for the price reduction? To me, it's going to be a difficult conversation, however, a needed conversation where you say to the seller, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, here are the stats. They indicate and they show where the market is dropping and falling in your neighborhood. We need to get ahead of the curve so that you can sell the property quickly and in a timely manner. I understand you don't want to sell it for less. However, if you want to sell it so you can move, this is where you should be. Again, you can also show them that report, that April over April report, that they're still way above where they were in 15 or 16 or 17. From that perspective, you can show them and say, hey, it's time for us to do a market adjustment. I would never use the word price reduction with them because it indicates it's a price reduction. So let's talk about a market adjustment. Let us talk about getting where the market is going instead of where the market is at. All right, so let's use the words market adjustment. Let's have our stats and let's be able to prepare to share with them how to price in a way, shape, or form that helps them get that under contract and closed in the next 30, 60 days instead of still being on the market in 60, 90 days. which is all going to be stats driven to get you to that point. All right, questions on calling it market reductions instead of price reductions, or market adjustments instead of price reductions. Anything? No questions? All right. The next point I want to have a conversation on pricing is, have you talked with, or do you have a conversation, a document, a form, a spreadsheet, an app, or something like them that says this is a good time for you to buy as opposed to renting? Having the conversation with renters about buying, and they're now starting to freak out. They're like, oh, well, the prices are dropping and I'm going to wait till they drop. Well, how low are they going to drop? Are they going to drop? You can show them this graph again with the April over 18 and show them that there was a slight little drop in April 20, the between April of 20 and 21, but it wasn't significant. And at that point, they've given up some of that tax cost basis, those tax savings, by being an owner. So you want to have your rent versus buy conversations. So does anybody have a favorite app they like to use for their rent versus buy that they have on their website? Anybody using the NAR one or the RPR one? All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a couple of links and send those out to y'all, since it doesn't seem like anybody has those. And we're going to put those in an email to you all, and we'll put them probably, Kimberly, we probably need to get a tab started on Town Central for apps that will work. Now, please remember, the apps that we're going to give to you are maybe not Apple apps, or they're maybe not Android apps. So definitely it's okay if I'm going to use Tanya Barrow. She's on, I can see her. She's using one app and I'm using another app. She might be using an app because it works best on her phone, and another app might not work good. So again, these are apps. So make sure you're just kind of using an app that's specific to your phone. Look at that in the reviews. But having a conversation with people about, hey, you have a tax break, a tax advantage when you are an owner, and having that conversation with them as buyers. All right, the third group of people that we want to talk about is your move up people and pricing, right? So we want to talk about those move ups. Mr. and Miss, there you go. Well, if we close now, if we lower the price, we're not going to be able to afford what we're looking to buy. Well, have you done the numbers? Have they done the numbers and say, if you close at this point, say you are at 500,000 and you have $300,000 in equity, you have 200,000 payoff, you got that 300,000, and now they're going to go buy 800. Where's that loan? Where's the interest rate on the 500? Right? So have you done the numbers for them? Have you had the conversation and said, hey, let me sit down, let me do the numbers, show you the numbers? If you're not helping them with that pricing strategy of here's where you're at from an equity standpoint and able to roll into it, you're not having a full pricing conversation with them. They may think they need to get 350,000 when they might actually be able to do what they need with 275. And if $275,000 price reduction or price adjustment or starting point of under 75,000 gets that house under contract quicker, there's where they're at. So if you're not having conversations with them on their move ups, you need to make sure you're doing your math and you're having the conversations with them from a pricing standpoint based on what they're moving into. All right, so we have people buying, first-time buyers. We have move-ups, right? And then we also have the group of people that are sitting there on the fence with the renters saying prices are going to go down, prices are going to go down. Sure, they may go down short term, but overall, owning a home in the long term is the best investment. And you have that little graph. We can send that out as well. If you need to have that to show them that prices are not necessarily going to go down, but if they do go down, they will eventually rebound. And the fact is they're living not in the price of the home, they're living in the payment. And that takes me to the last one, is the interest rate. All right. If you don't learn anything from today, and you don't take anything from today but this one thing, you need to talk to you yourself. So I'm not talking about convincing a client. I need you to convince yourself that everyone that's buying a house lives in a payment, not in an interest rate and not in a price. They live in a payment. Now, the payment will affect what they can see, what they can buy, but you live in a payment. So Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, you're going to be looking for a payment of $3,000. Let's talk to the loan officer. Let's get you and see what you qualify for $3,000. Start using that. Hey, your payment is $3,000, $3,000. If you go buy a car, they're not selling you on how much that car cost. They're selling you on the payment. It's the payment. You're living in the payment. That's your month-to-month bill. Your cost of living, your expense is in the payment. So, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, what's the payment you're looking to be in? Let's talk to the loan officer. Let's figure out what that looks like. What does the $3,000 a month house look like? And go from that avenue, that route. So from a scripting, dialoguing perspective, if you have not done that or talked like that, I encourage you, if you all go, you should be able to go to the people tab on here, and it should show you everybody that's on here. How about I make it easier? I'm going to read off everybody that's on here. If you know somebody that's on here and you want to call them and say, hey, will you practice with me? Write down their names. Ann Brewer, Ashley Swindell, Brenda Fisher, Kathy Davis, Diana Germain, Dina, she doesn't have her last name, Eleanor Hammond. Hey, Eleanor, I haven't seen you in a long time. Jackie Branch, Jennifer Brewer's on here twice, I think. Yep. Caitlin Ferguson, Kaveen McDonald, Kimberly Denton, Kimberly Johnson. Oh, Kristen's here. Hi, Kristen. Lisa Reed, Louis Eisenberg, and Myra. Let's see, maybe some other people. Let's see if I have to have Myra here. List got longer. Yep, Regina Scott, Shakanta Deaver, and Tanya Barrow. So if you haven't practiced role playing with anyone, please give somebody a call. Ask your manager, call us, send an email to training. We'll set you up with a partner. And it doesn't, and I didn't get into, hey, it's Tim Vohar, Berkshire Hathaway, and I have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. I didn't get into that type of script. What I'm trying to get you is scripting, dialoguing the language that you need to be using and incorporating, right? So we're living in the payment. Are we going to be better off renting or buying? Okay. Let's get ahead of the market, right? Let's do a price or a market adjustment, right? So using those phrases, those terms to help you get into the marketing and the pricing in a way, shape, or form that makes people more comfortable. We don't want to have a fire sale. We just want to get ahead of the market. All right, I'll open that up for questions. Questions, thoughts, ideas. So please, number two points to take from this. You live in the payment and do your numbers before you go on your listing appointments. Every time you go on a listing appointment, I don't care if you did a listing appointment last month in that same neighborhood, do it again. Right? Look at those numbers. They are changing, and we'll keep on top of this, these Excel spreadsheets. We'll try and get some pricing ones put together. But please stay on top of those numbers, because that's what's going to make you stand out. When you can show them, here's the market or here's the market. You're going to win the listing, and you're going to price it at the right price point to get it sold quickly, because you have done your homework, you've done your research, and you're prepared for the appointment. If anyone else has questions, I'm happy to take them. You can send them to training@BHHS Town. You can I'll hang on until everybody's off in case you have a question you want to ask, not in front of the whole group. But otherwise, y'all have a great weekend, and enjoy the nice, cool weather I think is coming for a couple of days.